Good morning, Facebook. Jackie Broman here from TBA Law. You can tell from the background that I am at home. Actually took this week off for leave at the start of the year, but because of COVID, I can't do anything. So I just thought I'd have a quieter week that I might otherwise have. So no appointments this week, but still doing some projects and things from home. So I'm coming to you today from home. No lights, no phone stand, so excuse the shaking arm. Today I wanted to talk about how laws are made. Particularly in the light of the current situation, you can put it into some context. So again, we've got state and federal jurisdictions, and parliaments in both jurisdictions can make laws, and then courts in both jurisdictions can make laws. And it's interesting to think about the separation of powers, particularly at a time like this as well, because we want our courts to be independent from Parliament. We want our courts not to take bribes or to be influenced by politicians or by lobbyists, because if there's overstepping, the courts bring it back into line. And that's like a constitutional review. If a law is unconstitutional, it gets overturned. And that can happen at both levels. So an act passes through both houses of state and it becomes law. So what we've had in this current situation are health acts and terrorism acts that are sitting in the background, waiting with powers in them. So the powers are already there. The governments haven't made new laws really to, have these stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3 shutdowns and to shut down businesses. So those powers already existed. So there were already laws around which gave the government powers in certain situations to make new regulations and laws and uphold those and enforce them. So they already existed. There weren't new laws created. So now that the government is accessing some of those laws that it needs to, and they can wind them up and wind them back. So a lot of laws, in fact, sit there giving the government and certain ministers and departments powers to make laws and regulations at any time. But quite often it's not done unless there's an emergency or unless there's a knee-jerk reaction sometimes to something. And so that's the way that Parliament can make laws, through enacting bills through Parliament, through both houses, and then they sit there with various powers for ministers to make regulations and orders. Then we have courts as well. So courts do make laws in some respect. The courts make laws in precedent, in setting how legislation is interpreted and in determining certain factual situations and applying the law to those. And then once precedent is set, that precedent tends to have to be followed unless a higher court overturns it. And that is why when I was talking about state and federal government, you have the different tiers of court. And as you appeal each tier and get higher and higher, the decision of the higher court obviously overturns the lower decision. So that is why a decision in the full court of the New South Wales Supreme Court can form precedent for a single sitting judge in any other state. Or the High Court of Australia sets a precedent and it applies to every state. And in terms of the powers that are now being implemented to close businesses down, to make people stay at home, these powers exist both at federal and state level for different areas. So federal Parliament has different powers to state Parliament, But if they work together, they tend to cover everything. And look, if the powers start overstepping, then it can be brought to the court to determine whether it's unconstitutional what is being done. If some of the things that start happening infringe on our human rights, for example, and I'm going to talk about human rights on the Monday after Easter Monday, there can be wind back in courts to say that what the Parliament is doing is too much. At this point, I certainly don't think that anyone is taking any of those powers to be challenged unconstitutionally. So, but that, I suppose, at the moment gives you a good context of how laws are made. So, just a short snippet of legal information, as I do every Monday. Next Monday, obviously, is Easter Monday, so I won't be in. And as you can see, working from home today without a phone stand, I'm having to change hands constantly because it's hard to hold your phone up, surprisingly. So TBA law is still open. Our doors are locked except for appointments. A couple of people are working from home or going into the office for a couple of hours and then working for the rest of the day from home. Where we do have appointments where things need to be signed, where cleaning the office surfaces a couple of times a day and after each person, and we're making sure we've got plenty of office space so that we're not within 1.5 metres of each other, and we have 4 square metres of space per person. So all of those things are being complied with. And we're trying to move as many appointments online to Zoom or phone appointments as possible, particularly if no signing is required. There's no need for people to come in. We've had the facilities to be able to do Zoom appointments for years. It's just that now people are starting to have to take us up on that. So the other thing I'm doing is any other business owner who is struggling to implement Zoom or remote appointments, I am running a short webinar this Wednesday for business owners who want to take some of their services onto Zoom and how to use it, because I find that Zoom is probably the best way to go. FaceTime is, a little bit unprofessional. It can be used between maybe staff members or family members, but with Zoom you can have multiple parties, for example, on the one thing. And it also sets up a specific meeting room so that you can't be interrupted. So that is available as well. So I hope everyone is staying safe, staying quiet, washing their hands, etc. But also getting out with a little bit of sun today for a bit of exercise in the sun. Take care, and I'll see you in a fortnight.